I was getting picked up at my hotel for my all-day boat tour through Halong Bay, but first I walked to the nearby bakery for some breakfast. Along the way, I had to avoid all of the construction happening on the sidewalks. I thought it was because of the hurricane at first, but later learned that it was actually a planned construction project. The breakfast was delicious, the coffee was good, and then I walked back to my hotel and the bus came to pick me up and took me to this spot where we had time to buy some snacks and then waited to board our boat. I didn't know anybody on my boat yet, so I just kind of hung out by myself, watched these little kiddies, looked around the harbor, and took some photos of other boats leaving. This boat actually appears in a lot of my pictures as it seemed to be following the same route we were following. Here you see one of the many floating fishing villages in Lanha Bay. Since we started off from Kat Ba Island, we went through Lanha Bay first with lots of limestone rock islands. Unfortunately, it was an overcast day, so the water didn't look as spectacular as it usually would. It's usually emerald green, and I think with the blue sky, the contrast would have been just amazing. But when you're traveling and you just have a day or so in a place, you really don't have a choice regarding the weather. And so sometimes you get really lucky. And most of the time I've been very lucky, but this day was just not as spectacular as I had hoped. But there were still lots of beautiful scenes that I saw, and definitely hang around because there's a lot to see in both Lanha Bay and Halong Bay. Twice we went by paddle boat under caves and into secret bays. We also stopped at a beach to see some monkeys. People had the option to swim to the beach and see the monkeys. But those of us who were watching from the shore could see that the monkeys were not very friendly, so I don't recommend that really. We also stopped at a jungle village and put our feet into one of those spas where the fish come and nibble at your skin, which I was way too ticklish for that. So stick around and see all of my photos from this amazing trip. So first we wove our way through Lanha Bay to get to Halong Bay. Halong Bay is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site and it's the most famous of the bays in Vietnam. I was always on the back of the boat and saw this visitor, this crow landing and then taking off again. I saw the boats in front of us, the boats behind us, the different limestone rock formations. It was all very beautiful. Then we came to a spot where we docked, got off the boat, and lined up to get into little paddle boats. And on this first trip, I actually had our guide as my partner. He stayed behind me and paddled while I took a lot of photos. And then he took some photos of me, which I added here as well. Along the way, he actually pointed out some monkeys that are very rare. And we saw them on the cliffs jumping from tree to tree, but it was very far and you can't really see them in the pictures. We followed the signs to the cave and then paddled underneath the cave into another beautiful bay. And here you can actually see the green color of the water because the sun was coming out a little bit. And so here's this very low ceilinged cave that we paddled under. It was quite crowded actually. But this was still a very wide cave. And here's the beautiful bay with a little bit of blue sky now. And all the paddle boaters. In this bay, my guide made us turn left. And then we headed to another cave. A much, much narrower cave that is often not accessible because the water is too high. But on our day, the water was low enough that we could enter this cave. See how tight it is in here. And you'll even see it worse on the way back. Very, very crowded. People had to try to steer past each other. And then here's the secret bay that is not always accessible. So I thought that was really cool. So after a little while of just floating on this water, we headed back to the cave. Here's the picture he took of me. And here you can see how tight and crowded it is to get in. You actually have to give way to others and watch how you pass each other. So we came back out into the first bay and then turned to our right to get back to the next cave and headed back in that direction. It was really, really pretty here. And so as we're going underneath the cave, look how many boats there are coming toward us. They are still just going in while we're coming out and heading back to our boat. Getting in and out of the boats was not that easy, but there were plenty of helpers that were always ready to pull you up and steady the boat, so it wasn't as difficult as I had thought. We then had lunch on the boat, and they didn't spare any expense. If you love seafood, this is for you. For me, a person who doesn't really like seafood, the selection wasn't as big, but I tried everything that I could, and everything was very tasty. I had done my research. I didn't really want to spend $250 on an overnight tour or even $400 or $500. So I ended up doing this day tour, and it was only $25 that I paid at my hotel. It was really affordable and really amazing, especially for this price. So unless you really, really want to sleep on a boat on the bay, I don't think it's worth the money. So here's this boat again that we had seen when we first left the harbor. It was ahead of us as we were heading to our next destination. But first, everybody was taking a siesta. The whole boat stopped. The captain, the crew, everybody took like a half-hour break. We were actually told to just lie down, close our eyes. This was part of the routine. I guess it's a Vietnamese thing to just take a siesta in the afternoon. Once we were done, we left the boat and hopped on a little tractor train that took us through the jungle to the jungle village I had mentioned earlier. You can see how green everything is and overgrown. A lot of vines, I think, strangling the forest. But we arrived at this little village, got off the train, and walked into a small building where our guide explained to us how they were making wine from different fruits and even with animals inside. So here's the name, Viet Hai, and here's our guide explaining where we are on Cat Ba, and here's the wine. I think one of them even had a snake in it. And then we all sat down at this pool and could have our feet cleaned by these little fish, but I was way too ticklish to keep my feet in the water. I tried a little bit. I sometimes put my heel in the water and let them nibble a little, but that was all I could do. I could not keep my feet in the water for more than a couple of seconds. Afterwards, we went to this little historic house that was built the way all these houses used to be built and had equipment that was used in older times. And my guide explained to me what it was used for. And then we just had an opportunity to take some photos. Because I was a solo traveler, my guide took photos with me. It was a lot of fun. And then I walked up and down the street to take photos of butterflies and flowers and just to kind of see what it was like to walk around the village. I love hibiscus, so of course I took some photos of this. And then we came back together and took a group photo. Then it was time to head back to the boat. We saw a woman burning garbage, one of the reasons why there's so much PM 2.5 pollutants in the air. We boarded the boat again, and I thought it was time to head back already, but no, there were still several more activities coming up. We passed more limestone islands and fishing villages on the bay, and then we went to another place where we got off the boat and into another paddle boat. My boatmate this time was Stephanie, and she was also from Germany, so we were speaking in German the whole time. I was taking a lot of pictures, and she was paddling. She didn't bring her camera just because she was worried we would fall over and it might get ruined, so I always took the risk. So here we also went for another small cave to get into a bigger bay. We just followed the crowd, I believe. Then we returned to the boat. We had this drink for a snack. And then some people had the choice to swim to this beach to meet the monkeys. But as I mentioned before, the monkeys were quite aggressive. Also, the boat next to us was so loud. They had loud party music going. So when you choose your boat, you have to decide what's the right kind of atmosphere for you. Now finally, it was our turn to move back. We passed more of these fishing villages. I took some close-up photos. And I believe you can actually live on some of these as a homestead. But I stayed in my little hotel in Katba Island and was very happy there. I think we got off the boat at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was an all-day trip. And then the van took us back to our hotel. And at that point, I was looking for dinner. And it so happened that right next to my hotel was the best restaurant in Katba Island, I think. I tried their Western dishes and Vietnamese dishes, and everything was delicious. Please join me for my hike in the Katba National Park next.